At number 5, it's the Snake Pagoda Myanmar. Snakes not your thing, the pagoda at Palik won't be your thing, either. Its official name is Udanalabamuni Shitornpai Paya, but most just call it the Snake Pagoda, and for good reason. The temple itself dates back to either the 11th or the 15th century. History is not quite clear on just when it was built, but it was only in the 1970s that the snakes showed up. 3 pythons made their way into the temple from the surrounding forest and decided that they were going to spend their day sleeping inside the pagoda, so they draped themselves around the images of Buddha. The monks allowed them to stay, because who wants to argue with a python? One of the pythons in particular is extremely large, about as big around as a man's thigh and about 5 meters, 16.5 feet long. According to folklore, he is particularly sacred, as he's said to be the reincarnation of one of the temple's abbots. Today the snakes are a huge tourist attraction for the area, which also includes 325 stupas, and the snakes are, by all accounts, harmless. They're well fed and well looked after, with a brave able to pose with them, and their handlers, for photos. You can also attend daily ceremonies in which the revered snakes are. At number 4, it's Mount Osor, Japan. One of Japan's most sacred sites, Mount Osor, or Mount Osorison, is one of the entrances to hell. It's easy to see why, too. The temple sits on a volcanic plain. The air is filled with the smell of sulfur, the pock-marked ground spits and blows steam and hot water, and the nearby lakes have been turned a sickly color by the same sulfur that taints the air. It also bears some striking similarities to the long-held depiction of the entrance to the afterlife. It's surrounded by a river and 8 mountains, and the pebbles along the side of the river are supposedly put there by the souls of dead children and babies, who are struggling to build a cairn so their spirits can move on. Statues around the complex depict Jizo, the protector spirit that tries to keep evil away from the children and their little piles of rocks. Parents who have lost children often bring pebbles to the site as an offering in the hopes that they'll be used in the spirit bridges. The children's attempts are in vain, though, and their penance for dying before their parents is to be haunted by the evil demons that keep knocking down the piles of stones they make. And the temple, the beach, the barren, desolate landscape, it's all covered with gifts that parents have brought to the spirits of their children. Little, colorful pinwheels dot the landscape, along with coins, chocolates, candy, and little toys. They leave gifts for Jizo, too, shoes, mostly, to help protect him as he chases the evil away from the children. During the shrine's festivals, women called it a commune with the spirits of the dead, bringing their messages back to the living who have come to see them. The women aren't religious, but they're given their gift supposedly because they lack another gift. According to tradition, the little bridge of Mount Osor is everyone's destiny. It crosses to the afterlife, and those who have lived well will cross it easily, while those who have lived an evil life will not be. At number 3, it's Tanah Lot, Indonesia. Tanah Lot is perhaps one of the most beautiful locations for a Hindu shrine as long as you don't mind the snakes. They're not just snakes, either, they're sea snakes, and some are incredibly deadly. According to the legend, Tanah Lot was first settled by a Hindu wanderer named Danghyang Niratha. After he built the sea temple on the rocky outcropping of the Balinese coasts, the local king grew incredibly jealous. The king wanted to get rid of the missionary and sent orders that Niratha was to leave the island and the temple. When he couldn't hold out against the might of the king any longer, Niratha turned his shaman to sea snakes, tasking them with protecting the temple while he was gone. The snakes are still there, and during low tide, the brave can get close to the rocky island base and beach where they make their home. Still considered the guardians of the temple, the silver and black sea snakes are potentially deadly, and more sad than terrifying is the potential fate of Tanah Lot. Its perch on the ocean rocks has made it susceptible to erosion, and in the 1980s, measures were taken to help ensure that the temple won't eventually fall into the water. Part of the restoration project included replacing a good amount of the island. At number 2, it's Previher, Cambodia. There are no giant snakes, sacred rats, or unsettling stories with this one. What makes this temple absolutely terrifying is the idea that you could very well be taking your life in your hands to visit it. The temple sits on the Cambodian plain near the border with Thailand. Dating back to the 11th century, it's an extremely well-preserved example of Khmer architecture, all the way down to the layout and the stone carvings that cover the temple. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the problem is that both nations think it belongs to them. Archaeologists and part rangers tasked with documenting and preserving the site are used to the sights and sounds of gunfire around the temple. It's only a few hundred feet from the border between Cambodia and Thailand, and occasionally, preservation work is interrupted when the conflict gets too bad. In 2011, dozens of people, civilians and soldiers alike, were wounded in attacks with at least 7 casualties. The problem started in earnest when the two nations realized that the 2008 UNESCO designation had the potential to bring in a decent amount of tourist spending, and both wanted to claim that. A century-long conflict escalated overnight. The temple is on a site that's been sacred since at least 893, when the first monuments were built. Archaeologists find the temple, which is dedicated to Shiva, an even more impressive structure than the more well-known Angkor Wat, but the conflict needed to be settled first. When France and Siam drew borders between the two countries in 1904, they weren't incredibly clear about which side the temple was on, which left a huge portion of land as contested territory. Conflict went all the way to The Hague. In 2013, The Hague gave the temple to Cambodia in an interpretation of an earlier 1962 ruling that had also favored Cambodia. How peaceful the resolution is. At number 1, it's Iwashima Jinja, Japan. Dolls play a huge role in Japanese culture. They're not just toys, they're used in rituals and ceremonies for purification and prayer, along with being a treasured gift for everyone from a newborn child to diplomatic ambassadors. Some are highly collectible, and they're not just treasured, they're nearly sacred. The shrine at Iwashima Jinja is geared toward women who go there to pray on matters like health and fertility. They also go there to leave the dolls that their daughters have outgrown because of the belief that a doll that's improperly disposed of might come back to haunt the family. The shrine is covered with dolls, and not just dolls but statues and figurines as well, many of them once treasured possessions. And everyone knows just how creepy dolls can be, especially those that are no longer loved or cherished. There are thousands upon thousands of dolls at the temple. Some dolls are thought to be hosts for human souls, and looking into the dead, staring eyes of those that are no longer needed. It doesn't seem like the idea is that far-fetched. Every year, the shrine hosts a festival in which some of the dolls are piled into boats and launched into the nearby ocean. Eventually the boats, and the dolls, will sink, and it's thought that they'll take bad luck and misfortune with them to the bottom of the ocean. Other dolls are brought to the shrine as offerings. Some are given in the hopes of gaining some good luck with a new baby or conceiving a child. And many of the dolls are given a strangely humanesque ending. Once they're absolved of sin by a priest, they're given to the fires in a ceremonial funeral. Plus Bullett Baba India. Ever since its installation, thousands of people have summed to visit the shrine of Bullett Baba. It's not an ancient site. The legend only started in 1988, but it's incredibly popular. On the 2nd of December, 1988, a local man named Om Singh Rathore was killed when he crashed his motorcycle into a tree. After the accident, local law says that his motorcycle kept mysteriously returning to the place of the accident. After attempting to move and secure the bike elsewhere, they just decided to erect a shrine to it. The spirit of Om, who had been incredibly proud of his bike, was blamed for not wanting to be parted from it even in death. Now, the shrine, with its Royal Enfield bullet and tree decorated with offerings left by visitors, is at the center of regular pilgrimages and a yearly celebration. On Om's birthday, thousands of people gather and partake in more than a little bit of opium and alcohol. Bizarrely, other shrines have begun springing up across the countryside. The idea is twofold. Not only is there a pretty neat legend associated with it, but there's a very sobering reminder that goes along with the bike. The rate of traffic accidents and fatalities is high in the area, and the shrine serves as a very constant reminder of the consequences of drinking and driving. According to local law enforcement, the shrine seems to be doing its job, and numbers of fatal accidents have decreased. Still, one of the frequent visitors to the shrine is Om's son, born 2 months after his death, and if that doesn't deter drinking and driving, nothing will.